bit of competitive running so far this morning at the Ferrari Racing Days. Now it's time for a bit of fun as a Formula One favorite has taken to the Circuit of the Americas. This car, which ran for Ferrari in the 2011 season, being piloted by a man who's won here. That would be Mr. Fernando Alonso, not in Formula One, but in World Endurance Championship spec. This car has quite a bit of heritage to it, but right now, it's just roaring away down the backstretch.
You know, the machinery that's here on this weekend is spectacular. The 333 sports cars, the Formula One car, the XX cars that are here for Ferrari, and it's artwork at 200 miles an hour. But, you know, the beautiful thing is you had a chance to go into the garage and really get a good look at the car, and a lot of the magic you can't see from here. You got to stand up close to it and see the intricate carbon fiber work. And I was talking to someone else, someone who races sailboats would appreciate it. Those are the people who see the unseen. They see the air move and they figure out how to place, you know, their sailboat in it to get the most speed out of it. These engineers look at these cars and they create these beautiful aerodynamic devices, and they can see how the air would flow around it, through it, under it, over it. And it all comes together in this package. You look, I marveled at the rear wing of this car when I was here yesterday. I think about the Indy cars that I used to drive in the early 90s. The rear wing was across the entire back of the car, right? And you look at the rear wing on this and you go, well, where's the rest of it?
Oh.
You know, I mean, it's so narrow. That's what the rules package was at the time, trying to eliminate some of the downforce, so the cornering speeds were reduced somewhat. But when you stand there close to it and you look at the intricacies and see how everything was utilized to its maximum potential, the smoothness of some of the arcs and the curves and the edges around the wings and the winglets and the under trays and the air inlets into the radiators, all of it mattered. All of it mattered, and that's when you really appreciate it. You also appreciate the sound of it.
Exactly. It's completely mesmerizing, not only to watch it, but to sit back and listen. And to me, the best part of this car is when you let it talk. Should we ride around with it for a lap?
Let's do it. It's just magical.
Makes me want to go back to my childhood.
It sounds so much better than current Indy cars or Formula One cars or whatever. I just love the sound of it. But it's just echoing around this facility. You know, on a Formula One weekend, obviously all the grandstands are packed, and those bodies in the stands kind of deaden some of the sound waves. But without a full, you know, audience here this weekend, there's a lot harder material up there in those grandstand seats that aren't occupied, as this is not a spectator event. We'll see more this afternoon as they open the gates and allow people in, but right now the sound of it just resonates and echoes through the facility.
It's infiltrating everything. It's just going straight to your heart to hear that show.
They're hearing
scream.
It down on 6th Street and downtown.
Yes.
Forget the bands that you heard last night. This is music.
Better music than anything you can find. And that's saying something for Austin.
Yeah. Austin is a music capital. It's also an arts capital. A lot of film work done here. A lot of people don't know that. You think of Hollywood as a place, but a lot of film industry here in Austin, a lot of technology in this area, and it just keeps growing and growing and growing. When I was in the garage, I asked them, and they said no. You know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah, they said no.
They said no.
No.
You can't sit in the car.
You can't sit in the car.
No.
I wanted to actually drive it, but
Yeah.
they wouldn't even let me sit in it. So it was like, I think when I asked that, they said, could you please step back from the vehicle? So
I wonder if I would get the same response from them.
they would probably let you get closer and let you sit in. Here's the other thing, as you look at, I like the evolution of motorsport, and, you know, obviously, like I said, it was back, I refer to it back in the day when I drove the IndyCar series, but you look at the modern Formula One car and look at where the driver sits in this and how you see him exposed without the halo devices now, without the aero screen like on current Indy cars. I get the safety aspect of it. I will tell you, as an old timer and a historian and somebody who drove, quote, back in the day, seeing the pilot in the car to me is magical. I get the safety aspect of it. I really, really do. And I don't begrudge that at all. But you also look at the seating position. You see a lot of the driver's head exposed. The driver's up in the car more. Actually, he's not up in the car more. The tub is lower on the sides, but it allows you to actually place the man in the machine, which a lot of times we don't see now, right?
Yeah. You can tell that that's Mark Genet by his helmet. So the lucky man who's getting to be out there on the track is the Spaniard. He's got quite a bit of experience in racing and has a long storied history with Ferrari.
Yeah, and I'm sure when you get the call to come to do a Ferrari Racing Days event, you don't go, no, I really don't want to go to Austin and drive a Formula One car for a few laps and then engage in the glorious hospitality that we have on the weekend. I'm like, no, that doesn't sound like fun to me. Well, I think it does sound like fun to him. Interesting right now, so you saw the oil that was down on the track and the substrate that had been down on top of it to try to soak that up. I wonder if he's been told, hey, if you can do us a favor. Did you see where he ran the car that lap?
I think he has to. I watched the motorcycles race here for a lap last weekend when I was traveling. Oh, bit of lockup on the front lap there,
he's
Mark.
not just
pushing.
dilly-dallying about, is he?
The motorcycles, as they come down that back straight, go completely over to driver's left.
He ran right on top of that.
The bumps are so present now down the back straight that the Formula One cars need to move over more towards the center of the racetrack.
So I was kind of like wondering if he was doing him a favor by trying to vacuum some of that stuff up as he was out there. He's in.
Could be, as he does dive into the pit lane now, as this is the first Formula One session of the weekend for these cars. This car, I should say, this is the special car that gets to go out and run around. It looks like there's going to be a driver change, though, as Mark Genet just shaking down the car to hand over to someone else.
Wait a minute. Why am I sitting here if they're going to do a driver change?
I am shocked that there is not a U-shaped hole in the door right now.
Why? It's like
disappearing off into the distance. As, yep, they're putting the tire warmers on, the tire blankets back on. Mark will be jumping out of the car, handing over to the next driver, the next lucky driver.
I'm not sure I'd fit anymore, Shay. I have to be honest.
Maybe. It's worth a try, right? You can always try. This car that has quite a bit of racing history to it. The 2011 version of the Ferrari that was raced by Fernando Alonso did claim a win in that season. That was the British Grand Prix. And everyone wants to win Monaco, of course. Everyone wants to win Monza. Those are the races that I would want to take victories in, let's be honest. But Silverstone is a pretty close third. The British Grand Prix has a lot of history to it.
I'll take a victory in a Formula One car pretty much anywhere. Local go-kart track if I could. But it was interesting. The 333 is now out on the track. I was talking to Carlos de Quesada yesterday. He has a vintage Ferrari Formula One car, and his goal is in the next couple of years to run the Monaco Historics. And we know drivers who have done that in the past, but I mean, imagine being able to go run the Historics at Monaco in a Ferrari. I mean, just and so many of these drivers in this paddock told me the same thing. And Carlos is one of those guys. And I actually asked him. He shared this with me, and I said, "Can I say this on air?" And he was like, "Absolutely, you can say it on air." He had open heart surgery a year ago, and it, he said, I'm tooling through life and everything was fine. And my doctor came to me one day and said, hey, I've been watching something over your last couple of years. I didn't want to say anything, but now it's time to say something.
Oh, gosh.
We need to talk. It's time for you to have this done. So he had open heart surgery, and he said more than ever in his life did it occur to him, you know what? Life is fragile. Life is short, and it doesn't matter whether you want to go run a Formula One car in the Historics at Monaco, or you just want to get in your car and drive cross country. If you have a dream, if you have a goal, it really can't wait.
Yeah.
And that was kind of Carlos's message. And so when I saw that Formula One car out there, it made me think of that conversation. And he said, absolutely share that, because I want people to have that mindset of, if you've got a dream, grab it, go do it, go live it. you may not ever have another opportunity.
That's a very good point, very valid point. But honestly, if I was going to be running Monaco Historics in anything, particularly a Ferrari, I'm driving straight down the middle of the track, going 30 miles an hour at the most.
Well, you have to go 30 miles an hour in some places, right?
Petrified. Yes, I'd be going 10 miles an hour in those places. But the 333 SP is a perfect example of a Ferrari race car that people can still love and enjoy.
Yep.
Almost 20 years of IMSA-level competition for this car, competing and winning at Sebring, Daytona. And for me, I'm wondering, where is DDATs right now? Because he is our long-standing driver standard steward for this series.
You don't think he's itching?
I think he might have duct taped one of these drivers
wait a minute.
to
Who
the
was
wall.
getting in the Formula One car?
Exactly. It might be DDA.
I have to go look at the helmet paint. But
yeah, I think he's a little bit occupied this weekend. But these cars, so much impressive history, particularly when you think about race cars nowadays lasting 6 seasons. If we're lucky, we'll get that lifespan. This was 19 years.
They had to basically kick me out of the garage yesterday because I was walking around not only with the Formula One car, it's sitting in there as well with these 333s, these beautiful cars. And you know the thing that's cool about these cars, the 333s, Shay? There's something in there that the Formula One car did not have. And it's to the right side of the steering wheel, right along the driver's right knee. It's about this tall.
Oh, would that be
It had a gear lever.
Yeah.
And you know, I looked at that, and I think it's a sequential box.
Yes.
But you know, it made me think back to actual H pattern gearboxes, and you know, you look at the history of these cars, and I think it's what's absolutely beautiful about. That's not the steering wheel that I had, by the way. That will launch the space shuttle right there.
Too soon, given what happened the other day.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
Shouldn't talk about launches.
But I mean, the technology is so different. The steering wheel in the 333, I looked closely at it. It's relatively basic, not a lot of bells and whistles and knobs. It's kind of like my steering wheel. Radio button, drink button. That's it. And there's actually a dash.
Yeah.
You know, and you saw the Ferrari Formula One steering wheel or the 488 Evo steering wheel. The steering wheel is the dash.
Yes.
Everything's on the dash. Everything's on the steering wheel. The brains are in the steering wheel. It's a 5-figure, 6-figure steering wheel. It does everything. And it's just so cool to see the technology. But behind all of it, there's still somebody sitting in the seat. Somebody still has to push the pedals and turn the steering wheel. Yes, there may be traction control. Yes, there may be ABS in modern cars. And yes, the engineering and the data acquisition has gotten better, but there's still a human being that's operating all of it. And I think that's the magic. Obviously, I'm not a fan of self-driving cars.
No.
And I appreciate the engineers who are working on the self-driving race cars, because to me, that's an experiment in engineering and so on and so forth. But if racing ever goes the way of the human being is no longer in the car, then we have a problem, because that's part of the magic of marrying, you know, the man to the machine. Take that human being and place them behind the wheel, and it just wring the best out of both pieces of the kit.
What a sight there for a moment.
Isn't that cool?
The two cars were side by side, and the drivers actually have the wrong helmets for the cars.
I know.
The guy in the yellow has a red helmet, and the guy in the red has a yellow helmet. I appreciate that they're allowing some distinction, but you were correct. It's five speed sequential gearbox in the 333 SP, so it is, and 5-speed. That's old-fashioned too.
Yeah.
Where are the other 2 gears?
You could say that's dated. Well, no, that would. Both of those make me feel really old. You said old-fashioned, and then we said dated, and you're talking about sequential gearboxes. I only ever drove one race with a sequential gearbox. Every other race I ever drove in my life was an H-pattern gearbox. All the Indy cars I drove, with the exception of one, was an H-pattern box.
But that's more impressive. That's heel and toe. That's the good stuff that people need to know how to drive.
There
a
is
race
a magic.
car.
There is a magic to
Yes.
that, and there was a side of that was another advantage. If you were good at it, you had an advantage.
Mm-hmm.
There's a cost factor with it. Obviously, if you do that 3rd to 2nd gear upshift instead of 3rd to 4th gear,
That's a cost disadvantage.
That's a significant cost disadvantage. And the teams then move to the sequential boxes, and then from the sequential boxes now to the paddle shift boxes, and the evolution has been pretty swift. And now what we've got is a group of young drivers coming up that have never driven anything but a paddle shift gearbox.
It's pretty amusing, isn't it?
Yeah,
When
it
you talk
really
to
is.
one of them and say, so you know how to heel toe? And they said, yes,
What?
this
That's
is my
my
heel,
heel.
that's my toe. It's good fun. But
Can you move my car? Oh, what's the thing in the middle?
Yes.
Yeah, that's a
It's-
gear shift. What's
it
the
is-
thing on the left? That's a clutch.
it's a theft prevention device.
Yes, that's-
It's exactly
it really
what it
is, right? I never thought of it that way, but you're probably correct.
That was the main reason that my father wanted me to have a manual transmission
nobody
car
could steal it.
in high school, so none of my friends
Friends could
could
drive it.
ever drive my car.
I like your dad for many reasons,
Well-
but that's just another. Bill Adam shows his level of intelligence. He was always ahead of me anyway, so.
Oh man, well, we were always brought up to be Ferrari fans. His dad appreciated his 1972 365 GTC4 and taught me very early on, you don't touch this Ferrari. This
Yeah, I was
is
gonna
my
say,
Ferrari.
You didn't drive that one, did you?
No, he let me shift the Porsche, but he never let me shift the Ferrari. It is just so nice to see that F1 car living once again and thriving, because how many of these cars just go and live in museums? Not Ferraris.
Here's the cool thing, though. The collection of cars, and you talk to the drivers who have collections of cars. No one is here this weekend who is not in love with the automobile, right?
Yes.
I mean, they just are. It's what draws them first to a Ferrari. It drew them to a Ferrari street car. The magic of Ferrari drew them to that. And then once they were there, they learned about the educational programs, the driver training programs that Ferrari offers, and then up into, so I can race it too, kind of thing. And that's why they're here. And they've got these car collections. And everyone I've talked to said, oh, no, I drive my collection. They don't sit. I put miles on them. I drive them. That's what they're for. And if I leave this earth at some point in time in the near future or 3 or 4 decades from now, they're going to be left to my family, and they're going to be worth what? A couple of $1,000s less because they've got a few thousand miles more on them.
Probably more.
And probably,
Yeah.
He's like, every driver that I talked to said, I don't care about that. I didn't buy them like gold or a stock waiting for it to increase in value. I bought them because of the magic that Ferrari is.
This is going to be the final lap for our F1 cars. He will have to dive into the pit lane because it is time to get competitive once again. Stay with us because in just a few moments' time, we're going to have some Copa Shell qualifying for you.